it to White, over to Caruso for the lead! Turn up the 18!
Hello and welcome back to Sea Red UK, where quite simply is Chicago Bulls Sea. This podcast is part of the Fans First Sports Network. Wherever you're listening, rate, review, subscribe, helps us out and ensures you don't miss another episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the bell, give it a thumbs up and leave the comments down below. I'm Matt and as usual, joined by Neill. How are we doing, Neill?
I'm okay considering we've had two overtime games to have to deal with this week. I think the only thing that's keeping us going is the fact that they were overtime wins and not overtime losses, maybe.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, I'm very tired today. I'm running off my little nana nap that I have before the game, which last night was about 3 hours. And obviously dropped another episode, a video episode earlier today as well. So yeah, starting work at 5 o'clock and still talking Bulls. So it's obviously, like I say, there is one out there on YouTube talking about the Rockets game last night. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It'll be in the feed as the last video before this one. Obviously, they're just something that we're trialing pretty much, aren't they? Them little short ones, see what happens. Basically means we can talk about other stuff in these ones.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
We'll crack on with it. Now, obviously, we beat Rockets last night in the overtime, as you just said, and there's a few points that I didn't quite get into in my video before. That I just obviously find it easier that it's going to be to discuss with you. The first one was the rotations.
Right.
You know, we saw. Well, I said in the last couple of episodes that when the likes of Zach and Vooch come back, I didn't want to see basically going back to what we were seeing beforehand. And that included the likes of Drummond losing minutes. He went down to 13 minutes last night, and as I mentioned in that video before, no rebounds. What the hell is that all about?
That's an anomaly. That is. I don't know. And it was weird because the way he was playing, I don't know how you found it, but the way he was playing, he was in the middle, he was in the mix. I couldn't believe it when I found out he didn't have any rebounds, because I was like, surely he's been getting rebounds. He's been in the middle of everything. Surely he's been getting rebounds. No, nothing.
And I mean, the game did seem to get away from both Drummond and Vooch, but yet we see Billy consistently persist with Vooch over Drummond, even though Drummond's proved the last few weeks what he can do. And another part of the rotation was obviously he went with this 9-man rotation. I'd say more an 8-man rotation because Dale and Terry got about 6 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Obviously the one that seemed to miss out, Javon Carter. And
BMP.
Yeah, it just, I don't know. I don't understand how we're at this point in the season and Billy still doesn't know what he's doing with his rotations. And you basically let these other players, the likes of Dylan Terry, get these minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like, just go take a seat. And I just find it annoying. I don't know what your sort of take on the rotations in that way.
Yeah, we're back to what we've talked about in the past with Billy, aren't we? He seems so restricted and self-restricted. I mean, he does it to himself. So restricted on the number of players he's prepared to play in a single game. He's gone back to this 9-man, which is pretty much where he's been in the past, and doesn't want to deviate outside of that. And that's a bit strange. But I actually thought that the rotations themselves within the game weren't bad.
Yeah.
The only issue was that he didn't expand that little bit further. I mean, he could have given slightly less minutes to some of the players and expanded that little bit more by throwing Javon in or giving Dalen a few more minutes. But no, that's just not the way Billy operates, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, look, obviously we've got the win. That's all that matters at the end of the day. As I said before, it's not a win over Houston Rockets of last year. It's this current Houston Rockets. So people saying no, it's only Rockets. They had a better record than us coming into the game. They were above 500 coming into the game. So
yeah,
and as we said in that Hornets game, Hornets game, the last one that went to overtime, we could quite easily have lost them games, but we didn't. Oh, right, yeah. Ideally, you don't want to go to overtime, as my little thing says. No more overtime. Sick of it. You know, I'm not prepared for free basketball at 3 o'clock in the morning. It just doesn't appeal to me. But yeah, it seems to be a different kind of mental toughness with this team at the minute.
Yeah.
And that kind of takes me on to the next talking point from it is the ISO Demar again. You know, we saw it in the Hornets game and we saw it in the Rockets game.
Right.
Last night in particular, if that shot drops, nobody questions it.
Yeah.
Because we know Demar can hit them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because it bounced off the rim and gave them another opportunity, people are now getting on at Demar and saying, well, Demar and Billy, you know, why are they running that play all the time? You know, why is Demar taking 22 seconds with the ball, dribbling it up and hitting that same shot? Because the opposition know what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying the ball should have gone to Zach because I don't want to see Zach in clutch.
No.
Coby was also hot.
Mm-hmm.
Not for the first time this season, where we've seen it as well, where the ball just doesn't go to Coby in them last, 2 minutes.
Right.
And I said to you before, I've got a few questions for you. And the first one is, I was just trying to think how to word it now. If the ball went to Coby in that situation, and it's just the first thought that comes into your head, what does Coby do?
Well, actually, the first thought that comes into my head is Coby passes it because he's so used to deferring. But what I'd like to see is Coby catch it, not think about it, and shoot it probably from distance.
Yeah. Well, if you'd asked me that question, my answer would have been, I don't know.
Because we haven't seen it.
Yeah, that's the main reason, because we haven't seen it. But mainly because the way Coby's developed his game at the minute, you just don't know what he's going to do. You don't know if he's going to, like you say, pass it, because that's what he's used to. I need to find Demar. You don't know if he's going to shoot it, because he's shooting it from all over the place at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know if he's going to drive. You know, in that situation, if he drives to the rim the way he does, there's a high risk, or high chance, should I say, that he draws the foul. And he's a pretty decent free throw shooter.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. Like most Bulls players at the minute seem to be splitting them. But if he hits one of them, it's a different game. Or he gets the layup. Or he blows it. And obviously, if he does blow it, I don't think Bulls Nation get at him. Because it's different.
Maybe, potentially.
You know, if it becomes a consistent thing where it goes to Coby and he consistently blows it, a bit like Zach, then, yeah, go back to Demar. Or somebody else. Do you know what I mean? If P. Will's on the court at the time, go to P. Will. Just do something different. And the fact that obviously recently defenses of, you know, Coby's on the board now, isn't he? You know, I mean, they're looking at what Coby does, and I think more recently, Coby's adapted his game again to better the defense. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm sat there watching and thinking to myself, I don't know what Coby's going to do, surely the opposition are going to be going, well, hang on, we didn't know it was going to Coby. What is he actually going to do? Is he going to go behind the back, throw brick, you know, chuck a three up? Is he going to go between his legs and then drive? You know, you just nobody knows because we haven't seen it in that situation. You know, so I don't mind going to ISO Demar if Demar's hot, and he wasn't hot in that fourth quarter or the fourth quarter before against Hornets. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what's your sort of take on ISO Demar and.
Well, first and foremost, just to talk about what you just said, I like your point with Coby, right? You don't know what Coby's going to do. My point was because we haven't seen it, but your point is because he's capable of doing a number of things, and we don't know which one he would do. Well, the good thing about that is the opposition don't know what he's going to do either, and instead of knowing Demar is going to run the clock, pump fake, and then shoot, or Zach is probably going to fumble the ball or scrabble it together and shoot and miss, or maybe score. Apart from that, you know what to expect. Nobody knows what to expect from Coby, partly because we haven't seen it, partly because he's capable of numerous things. And that's a good thing, right? That is a good thing because that gives us a slight upper hand, because you're not just defending the isolation. You're not just defending the three. You're now all of a sudden you're having to defend him almost four ways, because he can drive, he can shoot, he can pass, and he can try and blow by you. And that's not to say that the other two aren't capable of it. It's just we know that's not what they're going to do. We know exactly what Demar's going to do. We know exactly what Zach is going to do. But yeah, you're absolutely correct. I totally agree with you. You don't know what Coby is going to do, and I like that. I like that.
Yeah, and
yeah, go on.
You know, like obviously we kind of saw it a little bit in overtime last night when the ball didn't go through Demar. You know, Zach had them two plays where he ended up with 6 points off them, didn't he? The and one and then the three.
Mm-hmm.
The very next play, the ball goes to Coby and he hits a three.
Yeah.
And all right, it's not a clutch situation, that one for Coby.
Well, but some would say overtime is all clutch from start to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it was just effectively the game-winning basket. Mm-hmm. It was the one that seemed to put the game out of reach. And the impressive thing was, he took it.
Yeah.
He didn't even think about what he was doing. The ball come to him, boom, gone.
Yeah.
You know, had he missed it, yeah, you know, but you'd have known that had the ball come to him the next play, he was still going to shoot it, whether he hit it or missed it or what. And that's, to me, a sign of how Coby has improved, grown as a player, whatever you want to call it. And, you know, so the next question I sort of, or point to start with is obviously Zach and Coby last night. And obviously it seemed to be trending before the game because of the chemistry they've got, the fact that they're the only two from the previous regime. You know, the things that they say to each other or have been saying about each other more to the point. The various, you know, beat writers that have been writing about them. And then all of a sudden they both go out and have probably the best games of the season individually. And now all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, Zach and Coby. You know, even Bulls are pushing it. They've just dropped them album cover things again with the two of them on. You know, other creators, podcasters, whatever, are saying or talking about them and stuff like that. But it was only 2 weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was Demar and Coby. You know, because they both worked with Johnny Dribble too much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've been guilty of it myself. I said I don't think Coby and Zach can play together.
Mm-hmm.
Last night doesn't particularly change my opinion.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. And it's one game. You know what I mean? And the whole narrative around Zach at the minute kind of is maybe why I'm not believing it. That it can work moving forward. So this is kind of a bit of a two-part question. Is the problem Zach and Demar as a duo? And who does Coby work best with, in your opinion?
Okay, that's an interesting one, actually, and I'm going to struggle to give you a straight answer if I'm being perfectly honest.
That's not like you.
I know. I like to move away from the norm. I didn't say it was going to necessarily be a long answer or a long-winded answer. I just said it wouldn't be a straight answer, right? Okay, so Coby has got to the point in his career and the way he's been playing this season where I think he's become so adaptable that from a Coby perspective, it doesn't matter whether you're going to put him with Demar or whether you're going to put him with Zach. Coby's making it work. And I think he's the common denominator of success at the moment between those combinations and chemistry wise. So to pick it apart and actually say, taking that out of the equation and just looking at it as a unit of Demar and Coby and as a unit of Zach and Coby, if Zach is prepared to defer to Coby White in clutch situations, I say Zach and Coby. If Zach is not prepared to defer, and Demar, we've already seen he up until the last two games does defer if needs be and makes it work as a team unit. So we know he can and is capable of doing that. I still think it looks more effective, but it's one game sample size, bearing that in mind. It looked more effective with Zach than it did with Demar.
Yeah, like I said, to me, like you just said, it is one game. It's a very small sample size. We've seen more of Coby and Demar.
We have.
And it worked. We've seen this one game where it seems to have worked between Zach and, or this season anyway, between Zach and Coby. Like you just said, the sort of man in the middle, I guess, is Coby.
Right.
And it's a discussion that we've never really had to have before because Coby's never been this player before.
Yeah.
And that's why I asked, is the problem Demar and Zach? Is it them two can't exist on the court together? As much as they say they're good friends, as much as, you know, that I'm not interested in that. I don't care if they like each other or not.
Okay.
Do their games suit? You know,
okay, well, that
is because everyone said, didn't they, if Lonzo was there, we saw what happened.
Yeah.
Coby seems to have taken on that mantle of the Lonzo role that people wanted to see, being an extra pair of hands, basically.
Plain point.
So like I say, is the problem them two just can't exist on the court together?
I'm reluctant to say that they can't exist on the court together because we have seen it working, even post Lonzo. However, I do think that their games are not necessarily complementary to one another. Let's put it that way. I don't think that the way, particularly in the clutch, I don't think that the way that Demar plays and the way that Zach plays necessarily marry well together, especially in tight game situations or difficult game situations where maybe we're behind by 15, 20, 25 points. Neither one really knows what to do. It becomes this kind of 1-2 punch, but neither one's connecting, where they try and kind of go, okay, it's your turn, Demar. Okay, it's your turn, Zach. Okay, now back to you, Demar. Now back to you, Zach. It's so predictable, and that's something we've spoken about in the past. It's so predictable and not necessarily effective, that it makes it look like they can't work together on the court at the same time, I think. But there's actually no reason why they shouldn't be able to make it work if they were more prepared to, I suppose, round off their game a little bit more, where they're not just Zach playing his typical game and Demar playing his typical game, which is what Demar has been doing over the last number of games, where he has changed. And, you know, as we refer to him as San Antonio Demar, where he's become more passive, and not in a negative way. I don't mean that negatively. Zach seems to have stepped in and tried to focus on his defense as the catalyst to move forward. And that seemed to work last night for him. He had a great game defensively and offensively for a finish. Now, whether it can all come together, that's the big question. And how long will it have to come together for as well is the other question, I guess. But if they can make their individual talent that they have and this new adjustments that they're trying to make to both their games, if they can bring that all in together with Coby in the middle, I don't see any reason why it shouldn't work. But it all comes down to how prepared both Demar and Zach are to affect their games enough in order to make it affect the team play enough, I guess.
Yeah. And obviously the big question is, how much longer are we actually going to see it?
Exactly.
Is it next week? Because it's the 15th on Monday. Is it the 8th of February? Or is it, that's it? This is it now, basically.
Yeah.
So one last question on it. If Zach doesn't get traded, because that's obviously the biggest one, how confident are you that what we saw last night between Coby and Zach can work?
How confident am I? Based on a one-game sample size, not overly. Let me see it for 3 straight games, 4, 5 straight games, and then I'll tell you where I'm at. But at the moment, to just make a decision based off one game, well, I mean, we say one game. It's one game where Zach has started. I mean, if you look back on it, there were 2 other games where Zach came off the bench. So it's I suppose technically a 3-game sample size, but this was the first time as starters. Yeah. I need more before I can make a decision on it. I think it's too limited to base an opinion on one game.
Yeah, and that's what Bulls Nation seems to be doing. As we know, Bulls Nation is very reactionary.
Very. Which is fun, but not realistic.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're not that reactionary makes it hard to give opinions, I guess.
Yeah.
Either way, but anyway. So, obviously, moving on away from last night's game and my full court press. The Paris game. Obviously, it's coming up to, I think it'd be a year next week, is it, that we went?
Yeah, true.
Bulls, Pistons and stuff like that. Obviously, Cavs, Nets, well, it was going on when we started recording. I don't know if it's finished now. You highlighted something to me yesterday, I think it was, that you just wanted to sort of mention. So, obviously, I'll let you take the floor.
Well, I mean, I hadn't actually checked. It's too late to check it now, but I hadn't actually checked it. But what I found with the game with the Bulls and Pistons last year, apart from the fact that it was nigh on impossible to get tickets, right? We spoke about it at the time, how we tried and the system wouldn't allow us. Anyway, we had all sorts of headaches. For a finish, we ended up having to rely on some sources that we have that came good for us, and fair play to them, and we'll be forever grateful to the Chicago Bulls organization and its staff for getting us tickets to go, or to be able to go. But as Joe Soap, people jumping on the internet trying to book a ticket, which we were to begin with, it didn't happen. And there was no continuous advertising to buy tickets, to purchase tickets, because tickets were gone instantly. But I found this Cavs Nets game is that we're still kind of advertising tickets up until midweek. Now, whether that was just a PR thing and it just happened to be in the system that they were just rolling out and there weren't tickets available, I don't know for sure. But it definitely did make me kind of think, well, if that is the case, that just goes to show the gravitas that the Chicago Bulls organization has globally.
Yeah.
Compared to other teams. I mean, we are definitively a big market basketball club, right? And yet we don't seem to have the respect around the league of being that kind of a club. But once you go outside of America, it's tangible.
Yeah. I mean, before I just get into it, there's 35 seconds left, and Cavs are winning 109-98.
Okay.
According to the NBA app. So obviously, obviously that's going to keep changing. Looks like Cavs are going to get the win. Obviously, from a Bulls point of view, we stay ahead of Nets, but we're further behind Cavs.
There,
so,
there is that.
So, it's like I said to you before. Were we looking at it through rose-tinted glasses? Because obviously we're not interested in a Nets versus Cavs game, apart from the result, to see how it affects Bulls, as I've just said. So we haven't been like immersed in the publicity side of it, and because we kind of knew we were going as well. I think that led to a lot more of the excitement from us personally as well.
Of course.
Obviously, we follow Bulls and all their socials and stuff like that, and they were pushing it, telling us what was going to happen out there and stuff like that. I think the fact it was against Pistons helped as well, because they had, they've got Killian Hayes, obviously French. As we said when we went, there was a decent sized Pistons following, but it was nothing compared to the Bulls following.
Absolutely not.
And to me, these international series games, whatever you want to call them, I mean, I don't know how big Nets and Cavs fan base is outside of, well, Brooklyn and Cleveland, basically.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because I don't mean the thing, but I'm not particularly interested either. Do you know what I mean?
No.
I as we always say, we're about Chicago Bulls. But if you put Bulls against Lakers, for example, or Lakers against Warriors, or however, these bigger market teams, the more known teams, do you know what I mean? It's gonna just sell out like that. Doesn't matter whether it's Bulls involved, Lakers involved, whatever. I just don't get why they've gone with them two teams. All right, yeah, Cavs had a decent year last year. All right, they won the championship with LeBron. Nobody really cares about them now, though, do they?
But that's exactly it. I was going to say, the only time you saw people walking around with Cavs jerseys on and Cavs stuff on was when LeBron was playing for them. now that LeBron is long gone, I couldn't tell you the last time I saw someone wearing a Cavs jersey.
No.
Okay, Brooklyn, yeah, you still see people wearing Nets stuff, and to be fair, Primark, pennies, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
they had they do an NBA range, a lot of Bulls stuff, a lot of Lakers stuff, but Nets is actually one of the teams that they've had a few bits of as well. So there is that kind of little bit of marketing push, clothing wise, outside of America. But again, it's nothing like Bulls and Lakers. I mean, anywhere you go that's anything to do with basketball, there's two things you can guarantee. You're going to see some red and black and white, and you're going to see some purple and gold.
Yeah.
Everywhere. It's a guarantee.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from Cavs, Nets, the fan bases, whatever.
Me neither.
But
just talking
obviously,
about
like I said, yeah. And I suppose at the end of the day, it would get boring if it was the same teams that were getting pushed.
Yeah.
And is that maybe what the NBA are doing? Is they're trying to promote these other teams now? Do you know what I mean? And
right,
in the same way that other sports do it.
Yeah, but I've got a theory on that. Right, that's all good and well, and I get that you're trying to raise profiles of other teams, and especially if they've got superstars, all stars, or whatever on the teams. I get that. But what you need to be doing, or what I think anyway, personally, what I think you need to be doing is you need to be sending those kind of lesser teams with a big market team. So like they did with Detroit, they sent a team like Detroit with the Bulls because Detroit had a French player and the Bulls are the Bulls.
Yeah.
And it was a roaring success, right? And that's not just me saying that. If you look at anything after it happened, everybody was impressed. Everybody was, praising it, whether you're a Bulls fan, a Pistons fan, or a neutral. And I think if you sent over a team like Cavs or Nets with a team like Lakers, Nuggets, Warriors, Celtics, Bulls, that's going to raise the profile of that because they're in with a big market team. It's going to get a draw. A lot more neutrals will go because they know the brands of those teams. And it may very well pique their interest of the other team and say, oh, well, we'll check out the Cavs or we'll check out the Nets or whoever.
Cavs won 111, 102.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe not even about the organization. It can be about the players. If you sent Grizzlies over, for example, not at the minute, but who would they use to promote it? Ja Morant. The neutrals would go to watch Ja Morant.
Absolutely.
Neutrals aren't going to watch Jarrett Allen.
No. And that's not to say he's not a talented player. It's just he doesn't have that same draw.
Yeah. If you sent Nuggets over, current champions, Joker, they've got that European connection the same way that Vooch had it last year. Joker probably doesn't care. He'd be more interested in...
He just wants to go and play with his horses.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I like the idea of it. I think it just needs to be worked better. Either get, like you say, it has to be one of the big market teams or a face of the NBA coming over, like in terms of a player, to make it, because people will go to watch Chicago Bulls because everyone's heard of Chicago Bulls.
Yeah.
The neutrals from England aren't going to pay all that money to go to Paris to watch Cavs.
No.
If Nets still had that super team together, like from last year, people may have gone across to watch that.
Yeah.
But nobody's going across to watch this current Nets team as a neutral. Fair play to the fans that have gone over, travelled over, whatever.
Oh yeah.
It's your team. Enjoy it.
Absolutely.
We did.
It's not a knock. It's not a knock on fans of those teams at all, because absolutely, you take your opportunity, you go, you see them 100%, 100%, of course, and they will, and I'm sure they have. it's more like you're saying, it's the neutrals and
Yeah.
the big and trying to raise profiles globally. And I think that's where they're missing a trick.
Yeah. And obviously moving on again and a bit more marketing talk, I guess. Tomorrow night, Bulls take on the Warriors in what is the Ring of Honor game.
Yes.
And, Bulls are doing their bit to really push it at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
There's some pretty interesting stuff gone out, words from Barack Obama about Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Stuff about Dennis Rodman. Obviously, everybody else who's getting inducted, there seems to be something else. And
can I just say, actually, sorry, just to cut across you there, but can I just say they're getting Eddie Vedder to write about Dennis Rodman, which he done in handwriting, by the way. He nenever printed it off, which is class.
Seen that. Yeah.
It's absolutely, truly inspired. I'm pretty sure you know the background. I know you're a big Dennis Rodman fan, but for anyone listening that might not quite know the story, and if you haven't read any of Dennis Rodman's autobiographical stuff, or even watched the really, really bad TV movie that was made years ago, you should certainly look it up, because Dennis Rodman sat, he was a big Pearl Jam fan, right? And he sat in his pickup truck with a shotgun outside the Detroit Pistons arena, on the verge of doing something really stupid. And he was listening to Pearl Jam at the time. And it was listening to Pearl Jam that brought him back around to himself.
Mm.
So technically, in a roundabout kind of way, and I'm sure Dennis would say this if he was talking here right now, which one day, but he would say that Eddie Vedder's band saved his life. Pearl Jam saved his life.
Yeah.
Come full circle and have Eddie Vedder write about Dennis Rodman. I just think it's beautiful. I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we spoke about the Ring of Honor when they first announced it, what our initial thoughts on it were. And like you just said, with the whole Dennis Rodman thing,
mm-hmm.
they're doing it right.
They are.
And that is one thing that this Bulls organization do, is the off-court stuff is just, as we've just been discussing, they're a big market. They're one of the biggest organized sports organizations, franchises, whatever you want to call them, in the world.
Yeah.
You have to have the right people doing the right things behind the scenes. And, full credit to Bulls. It's a shame we can't be at the atrium or whatever, where this whole thing's getting set up. We've seen pictures of it. It looks amazing. We saw, I guess, a little glimpse of it in Paris last year when they had the House of Bulls.
Yeah, definitely.
That was incredible to look at. So to do that side of it right, the fact that they're honouring these legends as well is, about time, basically. But they're doing it in the right way. My concern is the fact they're doing it during a game. Because at the end of the day, there's still the on-court stuff that has to be sorted out. And I don't know if you listened to it yet, but the last Bulls talk that come out, obviously, they've got the broadcast side of it to look after.
Yeah.
And Kevin Anderson was saying about he's seen like the schedule for it, basically, and Bulls have had to apply to have an extension to half-time. It's usually about 16 minutes. But at the minute, it's looking at between 20 and 25 minutes, because they've got to set up, and then they've got, is it a 15-minute sort of induction ceremony, whatever you want to call it. There's going to be speeches, so chances are it overruns.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to be a close game going into half-time. And it's going to work for both teams. I'm not
Absolutely.
Then they often, the players are getting cold. They come out, they do this little shoot around at half-time. Then they've got to stand and, they're going to respect what they're seeing, because it's legends of the game.
Yes.
Steve Kerr been the coach of Warriors. We know all about that. But I just think they should have done it before or after, not during the game.
Yeah.
Because I think it kind of takes away from the game, and it's making it all about that in a way. Or they could have done it completely separate. I know they've got the audience there, the crowd there, and all that if they do it during a game. But yeah, to me, that's my only concern with it. And yeah, it's a regular season game, but at this stage, it's quite an important one for Bulls, and it's important for Warriors as well, because they're
it is
in the right mess at the minute. So yeah, I mean, what do you think about the sort of timing of it? And
well, following on from what you were saying there, I agree with you entirely. I mean, it could be an absolute momentum killer for whichever team has the swing. It could also be a potential for injury because, like you say, players have gotten cold and then they're expected to run back in and take off again after an extended break at the halfway point. And then you could potentially be opening up the possibility of an injury there. Muscles getting cold. Hopefully not. Hopefully it all goes well. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be a spectacle. I'm sure it's going to be great to watch. That's not what we're saying. And I do think you're right, though. I think it would have been nice to do it at the start of the game. I think even leaving it to the end of the game at that stage, you've got one side that's going to be not happy. Do you know? And if it happens to be the Bulls that lose, they're not really going to be in the right spirit to then start celebrating this if they've just lost the game, especially if it was a close game. Plus, also, you've got the potential for overtime. What happens if it spills into overtime? It's happened in the last 2 games. It's not unheard of to happen a third time.
Yeah.
And then you're pushing it all further along again. It kind of gets messy. I think what they should have done was they should have allotted a certain period of time prior to the game and done the ceremony before the game. Plus, I also think then that has the potential to lift the spirits of the Bulls players and give them something almost extra to play for. And it could have actually worked beneficial that way.
Yeah, I mean, you could have had all of them legends there forming like, is it the Guard of Honor, what they call it, whatever they call it. Yeah. So they could have done the induction, and then they could have had all of them legends, or as many legends as they can, forming that, that tunnel of players basically, so that the likes of Coby White are, coming down, and we don't know who's going to be there. That's my next question, but potentially getting dabbed up by MJ. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Scottie Pippen, whoever else is there, that's surely got to give them a bit of a lift and get a bit of that old style Bulls spirit into this current team. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, obviously, like you said, sure, it's going to be brilliant to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, imagine Tim Sinclair, shout out to him, 4 times All-Star himself.
Yes, absolutely. Congratulations, Tim.
We forgot to mention it on the last one, so yeah, like you say, congratulations, Tim. I'm sure he'll do a fantastic job of,
absolutely,
the announcing side of it and stuff like that. And I imagine it's a
it
huge honor.
gives him the opportunity to introduce players that he probably never thought he'd get the opportunity to introduce. Like when he did the 75th anniversary, he got to name players he thought he'd never get to say, the likes of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Dennis Rodman.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sure he's very excited about the whole thing.
And that kind of takes me on to the next question. But before I ask you the question, if MJ is there, imagine what it's going to be like for Tim Sinclair to announce Michael Jordan at the United Center. I'd imagine that would be that peak gone. Done.
Yeah.
Retire.
Yeah, mic drop.
But yeah, so that takes me on to my question. Will Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen be at the United Center tomorrow night together?
No. No, they won't.
Will any of them be there?
I think one or the other will be there. I don't think both will be there. Sadly, unfortunately, I think the most likely person to be there is probably going to be Scotty.
Yeah.
There might be a video, there might be a VT from the other person, maybe. But I just can't. Do you know? You've got me thinking now, because I'd absolutely love. This is dream stuff now. I'd love if the two of them walked in there. Could you imagine the reaction in the United Centre if the two of them were there, and the two of them, whether it's for the sake of the cameras or what, shook hands or embraced or even gave each other a smile and a laugh or anything? Like, could you imagine the eruption around the arena?
Yeah,
be amazing.
And
but
that
I don't think it's gonna happen.
Arena, it'd lift the atmosphere,
Mm.
and it lifts Bulls. Hopefully, not Warriors. So yeah, it's. Like you say, I don't think they'll be there together.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't think any of them will be there. Full stop. I think it'll be all video for them too.
Do you really?
Yeah, because they're actually getting inducted as individuals as well, aren't they? Not
Yes,
just as
they
part
are.
of
Yeah.
the 96 team. So yeah, it'd be nice to see them there, but I think they've had their moment with the jersey retirements and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So moving on from that, like we just said, we face Warriors tomorrow. So it's prediction time. Now, Warriors are a complete mess.
Mm-hmm.
Bulls have turned a corner somewhat.
Yeah.
But are still a little bit of a mess.
Yeah.
If you want to look at it one way, it could be a chance for Zach to show himself to Warriors, get that trade.
Yeah. Showcase.
Could be a chance for us to look at Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, whoever else, Draymond Green, if he's not retired. It depends what mood he's in, doesn't it, really?
Yeah.
So, where's your head at with this one?
I can't see it being anything other than a dub, really. Purely because a dub against the Dubs. Purely because there's just going to be too much. There's going to be too much excitement and too much fire going around the UC, and I think it will inspire, and spur on the Bulls to take the win.
Yeah, see, Warriors got battered last night, didn't they? Did you see the score against Pelicans? Was it
131, 105 or something like that?
Yeah, it was something ridiculous.
Yeah.
They're hurting. They're going to come out wanting blood, I think.
Yeah, and they're going to want to spoil the show, of course.
Yeah, especially Steve Kerr.
Oh yeah.
Because, he's going to prove what he's capable of, basically.
Yeah.
Hopefully for him. And it's kind of got. I want to say we're going to win it, but I think we're going to lose it.
Ooh. Okay.
I don't know.
I like it when we differ, though.
Just seems to me like it's going to be one of them games where
trap game.
A trap game against the Warriors.
Well, I mean, like we're after saying they're in disarray, so yeah.
Yeah. So I just think it's a game where we step on the court thinking we've already won it,
right?
And we just don't show up.
Yeah,
obviously, it is the first of a back-to-back. That one been at the United Centre. They'll be then jumping on a plane to, which again, we don't need the extended half time to jump on a plane to San Antonio to face the Spurs for the third time in, is it a month, 6 weeks, whatever it is now?
Yeah.
Wemby just dropped a triple-double last night. You messed up your fantasy team.
My fantasy league. Left him on the bench.
you know, and again, this has all the potential to be a trap game because we should beat Spurs, but we're going in on the back of a back-to-back or the second night of a back-to-back. With last year, we saw that Spurs can beat us.
Yeah.
And it is a team that, for the most part of the game, we struggle against. Just luckily, in the last two games, we've managed to basically stop Wemby being Wemby and, well, slow the rest of the team down more than Wemby down. So, where'd you head out with that one?
Dub. Not a win. We're going to go strive for 5.
And that would put us one below 500.
Yes, it would.
With Cavs on deck after that, I believe it is, on their return from Paris. Could be 6. For you anyway.
Well, if you were to ask me now to go as far as a prediction against the Cavs, that's where I'd pull up the L.
Yeah, standard. Yeah, I think we should beat Spurs. I'll say we do beat them. So I think we split the games.
Okay.
So yeah, I've got nothing else. I don't know if you have.
Nope.
So yeah, as always, appreciate for you listening. As we said at the start, hit the bell, give it a thumbs up, leave the comments. If you haven't checked out my solo effort, like I say, that's there as well. A bit more talk about the Rockets game. And yeah, once again, thanks for listening. As always, I've been Matt, and you can find me on Twitter at MattCRedUK, and you can find us on all the socials at CRedUK.
And you can find me on Twitter at NeillCRedUK. On behalf of us both and the Fans First Sports Network, thanks once again to everyone for tuning in, whether you're watching or listening. We do ask you also, please, to make sure that you subscribe, give us the thumbs up and all that, as Matt says, because it helps us to keep going with this and keep providing you with the content. And from both of us, please do remember, it's a Chicago Bulls thing wherever you are in the world. And until next time, see you red people. Go Bulls.